Hello and welcome back to the Bucs Banter Podcast. We have got a banger of a show tonight, and to be clear, I am comfortable calling this episode a banger before it's even begun, because I am joined by none other than the draft god himself, Thor Nystrom, NFL draft and college football analyst for Fantasy Pros. You can and should follow Thor on Twitter if you don't already, at ThorKU. Thor, really pleased to have you join the show for a second consecutive season to provide us with your expertise and analysis as it relates to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers rookie class. For anyone who doesn't know, Thor is notoriously tough when it comes to giving out his draft grades, which is why I was pleased to see, Thor, that you gave the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a B- in your draft grades article. They were one of only 4 NFC teams to receive at least a B- from you, and I'm looking forward to getting some more insight from you on some of these guys. So if you're cool with it, let's start at the top and kind of see where this conversation goes.
Yeah, let's do it. Good to be back with you, man. And it's funny, like, you say a B- with like anyone else out there, they'd be like, oh, what, they think we have one of the worst draft classes in the NFL. But like you're mentioning, I grade on the curve. So like a B-, it's a true B-. I'm saying that is an above average process and by, a couple notches. So that context has to be mentioned with that.
100%, man. And when I saw the B-, I was just like, fuck yes. Like right away, right? Like, yeah. So,
I had to give my own team the Vikings. I gave him a D something, right? Like, it's like you have to call the ball where it lies. And so, like, yeah, I mean, like if I say a B- or above, like I really liked your team's draft class.
For sure, man. That's how you know you're a real one when you're giving the Vikes a D.
Yeah.
So anyway, first pick for the Buccaneers was at 19. Almost everyone expected the Buccaneers to go with an offensive tackle because that addresses a clear need. If not, the thought was edge rusher, maybe a nickel corner, a Brian Branch, something like that. But Calijah Kancey was the guy, and obviously incredibly rare speed and agility combination for defensive tackle. But there's some size concerns there, and I'm going to ask you a couple layers to this question. I'll kind of just let you go off. He was 22nd on your overall board. So this is right in the same neighborhood. Obviously, part of the reason why I assume you're cool with the pick. How unique is he as an interior defensive line prospect? Do you think his lack of length will limit his impact at the NFL level? And what are reasonable expectations for Kancey over the next couple seasons playing alongside Vita Vea?
So those like that's the question with his evaluation, right? Like, I mean, like, first of all, the unique thing, you can't really place him with other guys, right? Like, I mean, like Ed Oliver was the most recent guy who was like kind of like him, but not exactly. And then the Aaron Donald one's stupid because, I mean, like the overall athletic like I get if you put it next to each other, it's like, oh, and they went to the same school and just look at the things when they were at the combine. The difference between those two guys is Aaron Donald was like country strong. Like stupid strong, right? Like, it's like muscles on muscles. And like, I mean, like his contact balance and his body control, like that was other stuff. Like Kancey, I actually think is quicker and has better agility than Donald, but he absolutely does not have the body control, the balance, and the play strength categorically that Donald. They're different kinds of players. So like that one you throw out. To me, it's like, as far as like the transition to the next level in this totally unique package that we basically haven't seen, right? As for a first round prospect, like, again, like Oliver's the closest one that I can associate with, but that's not 1-to-1. It's like the bonanza ceiling for him. If everything works out and he is able to overcome the lack of length, it's John Randall. That is who he will be. If he hits that ceiling, if he is able to overcome that length in the same way he did in college, he dominated without it, right? And that says something to you, right? But of course, now you're jumping up against the better athletes who have the longer length, but it's like that level of dominance, it has to count for something. The athletic profile obviously does as well. If he hits the ceiling, it's John Randall. I think a more middle of the road outcome, or maybe, shaded even optimistically, I think it'd be Ed Oliver. Like, I think that's the kind of guy he'd be in the NFL. And if it don't work out, he is a situational edge rusher that can only play on passing downs. I mean, he's still going to be worth a roster spot for sure. But like, there is a line of continuum here, and he is one of the hardest guys in this year's first round to say exactly, like, you know, like Anthony Richardson with the quarterbacks. It's another one where you never seen it before. We just literally never seen a guy like him before. So it's like, you know, if you hit the upside, it's this. If you middle of the road, it's maybe looks like this. There's also that bust outcome. I believe in Calijah Kancey. That's why I put him as high as I did. I actually put the Bonanza comp in my, you know, it's, you know, I do like the 800 comps or whatever. I put the
I can't believe how many comps you do, dude. Because that's hard. Like, I know you put thought into that. Like, I know you actually think about it. I think that's badass and super cool.
Yeah, no. So thank you. I appreciate that. Like, you know, it's something where like most of the stuff I do with this, it's like when I was a kid, I was obsessed. Like, I've never stopped being obsessed with college football and the NFL draft. It's been the same since day one. But like when I was a kid, I would consume as much of it as I do now of like other people's work. Like I love the draft magazines. I loved, you know, once we got the internet, I'm old enough where I actually remember a time pre-internet, but like, you know, like when the internet came along, then I could read McShay, Kuiper, Daniel Jeremiah comes along later. Mauch was doing it for a bit, like all the different guys, whatnot. And like, you know, you love that certain stuff, but like there was stuff where it was like, well, why don't they do that? Like, why doesn't anyone put out bigger big boards? Like, why can't I get a big board that will tell me about guys that sign on Saturday night with, you know, I grew up in northern Minnesota. When the Vikings are signing guys during the UDFA process, why is there not a big board big enough where I can see where that dude, what he thinks of this guy, you know? And then it's like, you know, so then I push it to 500 players. And then I was like, why don't you just drop a comp on every single one? Because that was something else that I like loved as a kid was comps. It's like, why don't more of these folks do comps? It's like, you know, at that time, like I watched, you know, college football for sure, but it's like, I didn't have, I mean, like now my professional career, it's just, you know, watch all the college football you can in the fall. And then, you know, spring starts and you're starting to watch the film, whatnot. It's like, I didn't have the same amount of time when I was a kid. So like, it's not like, you know, every single guy that I seen was like, oh, this guy is that guy. But now I had this time to do it. And so it's like, well, I'll be that guy. Right. I'll put a comp on all different dudes, even down to the UDFA. So I appreciate that. And that's where that comes from.
I think people are afraid to do it, quite frankly. You know what I mean? And they'll criticize the concept of making a comp for a guy. But it's just a point of reference and similarities, right? Doesn't mean he's going to be that guy. I think you do a great job of walking that balance. You know, you're not putting expectations on someone. You're just looking for play style comparisons, size comparisons, whatever it may be.
For sure.
Now, Kancey, as you've alluded to, he's an outlier, and I love the comparison to. It's kind of like going for a home run, because if he hits, he could be special, right?
Yes.
And I think we agree on that. And obviously, he's going to need to step it up in terms of showing he can defend the run at this level if he wants to be on the field. And I think having Vita Vea in there is going to be a nice tandem there. But I'm curious about specifically his wingspan. He's under 31 inches, and that's another differentiator when you're trying to battle off those big interior offensive linemen. You're getting double teamed, you're right. You need that length. But I guess it's his explosive athleticism. Like, his feet are stupid quick, Thor. Like, it blew me away. Like, he looks like a running back scampering through the hole. Like, it's crazy how quick he is.
Yes,
it's wild.
Uncommon doesn't go far enough with that. Like, it's like you're scanning your brain of like, who have I seen like that before? Who's like that? And like, that's why I got so tough with him, right? Like, yeah, I mean, like, you know, it's sort of like with Bryce Young. Like, every time he was brought up this spring, it's like, oh, he's small and he's an outlier because of this and that. And it's like, why don't you guys talk about how he's an outlier in terms of his friggin' brain size and his field vision and his ability to process the field? And then maybe bring up that he's an outlier with his size too, like as the end of the sentence. And, you know, it's the same sort of thing with Kancey. And yeah, like, yes, he's an outlier with the size stuff for sure. And yes, that may or may not be a problem in the NFL. That is fair to talk about. But it's like, who have you seen that plays on the defensive interior line, certainly over the last decade coming out, that has that same level of quickness, that same level of footwork, that same, like, you know, as far as like the length stuff goes, it's like, well, they'll get their hands on you first. And so then they get the lead on the rep. But it's like, what if you can't touch them? Right. Yeah. And like Kancey, even in those close quarters, it is really tough to touch him. It's like, you ever watch Karate Kid where Miyagi, he's got the chopsticks and he's giving it to Daniel-san and they're supposed to catch the flies, with the chopsticks or whatever. That's what it's like trying to put hands on Calijah Kancey. Yeah. Even if he's right in front of you, you got to be very precise. The timing has to be right. If you screw anything up, he's by you. If you get off balance at all, if you overextend at all, you try to do anything to compensate, you're now dead to rights, and now your quarterback's in danger. I mean, it just is what it is. The other stuff, for sure, you can talk about it. That elevates the risk profile, but you can't say that stuff without mentioning as well how high that ceiling could theoretically be because of that unprecedented movement skills.
For sure, man. I love it, and I'm excited. I think people in Tampa are excited. Worth taking that gamble on what I think we agree is a high ceiling player.
For sure.
We'll see how the fit works. I love him beside Vita Vea. Vita Vea is, I don't know if he's ever been on an NFL field and not been double teamed, so that should help alleviate some of the pressure on Kancey. Okay, Bucs second round pick. Thor, you nailed this one too. He was 33rd on your board. I feel like for these first few picks, like your big board is aligned quite nicely with some of the Bucs, which I guess makes sense with why you like some of these picks. Cody Mauch, North Dakota State. He was a tackle in college. The Bucs are planning to play him at guard. Very versatile, highly athletic linebacker. Despite how he looks, you might not. People are like, "What do you mean athletic?" Like, this dude is athletic, especially in the run game. They run a run-heavy offense. He is crazy in space. Like, very impressive. I'm curious to get your thoughts on Cody Mauch, and do you think he has the tools to develop into an above average pass protector at the NFL level? Because I think that's a big question, knowing he's going to be used as a guard.
I love Cody Mauch, and yes, yes, absolutely. Like, the question about his pass protection, it had nothing to do with athleticism or acumen or anything like that. It's just, technically speaking, in conjunction with his lack of length, it's like other guys, like those long levered edge rushers, they're able to get, we were just talking about this, but like, on the other side of it with Mauch, like, they're able to get their hands on him first. And he is well, first of all, he's a lunch pail type fella and through the echo of the whistle kind of guy. I don't want to say frenetic because I think that goes too far, but like, he gets to work and he's getting after it. He's not one of those guys who likes to sort of sit on his heels and just sort of do the Sunday drive with you, shuffle in the arc. Like, and his footwork just is not there with that. Yeah. Like, on the edge, like, I mean, he didn't face many like elite dudes out there in the FCS, whatever, but like the times where the guys had the movement, sometimes you've seen him do the heel click in and different stuff like that, getting off balance because the guy did a quick move to the other side, whatnot. Like, his footwork out there, the technical aspect of it, the efficiency of the movement, stuff like that. That was really the only thing that you questioned about that. He has everything else with regards to that. Like, in terms of just the straight athletic profile, in terms of the movement with that, like, you're not getting away from with anything else outside of sort of tying his feet or using his own momentum against him because he just didn't do the correct step or whatnot. But like the run game stuff, especially as a guard, when you're projecting him to the next level, it's really, really good. He is maybe not elite, but if he's not, it's right up there. Like, he was one of the most athletic offensive linemen in this entire class. Obviously, he played left tackle at NDSU. You mentioned their super fun run game, which it's always just fun to watch the NDSU tape because of all the fun stuff they do with their offensive linemen and just like the blocking sort of schema they do, like play in and play out. Like, it's just really fun. It's different than what other teams do. And like one thing that they would do with Mauch quite a bit is send him out to the second level, different, like pick off the linebacker. I'm trying to think if there's another lineman in this draft that was better at that. Like, I can't think of one. I think he's the best in this draft at that, pulling, different stuff like that, hitting the outside shoulder in zone. Like, there's offensive linemen that can do that. It requires super quick quickness out of the gates or whatever. And then the technique in terms of that. And like when Mauch's coming forward and it's like the aggressive thing and you can sort of let him off the leash, he's going to go and find someone and he's going to plaster the guy. Like, that's just what it is.
And who better for him to learn from? He's going to be playing beside Ryan Jensen, right? Another small school guy. Like, Jason Light loves these small school dudes, man. Like,
yeah.
Ali Marpet, Ryan Jensen. And I got to give it to Jason Light. He has been really good at identifying value in the draft along the offensive line. I mean, jury's still out on Luke Gedeke, drafted last year in the second round, which was a bit of a reach maybe in most people's eyes. He really struggled at guard. The plan now is to move him out to right tackle. So he performed a little bit better there when he did play in tackle. But it's going to be really interesting for the Bucs to see how all these guys fit along one another. Versatility, like the Buccaneers and Jason Light in the scouting department, they prioritized, it was obvious, best player available. I already mentioned how they passed on an edge rusher or a tackle with their first pick, which shocked most people in Bucs Nation. But then here they didn't draft a tackler or an edge rusher either, right? So it really just speaks to them trusting their board, I guess. And they obviously are big believers in what Cody Mauch can bring to the table right away and what he could become playing alongside some of these other like-minded players with similar attributes, I think.
For sure. Yeah. And he's going to be a Tampa Bay fan favorite from the get. You got the long red hair, you got the gap 2 smile, you have the first down celebrations, everything like that. Buck fans are going to love Cody Mauch.
Love that. Okay, let's talk YaYa Diaby. So you were about 15 spots lower on YaYa. In terms of, you had him as your 97th overall player, edge rusher 15. Bucs took him at 82 in the third round. 6'4", 270. Really showed us something this past year with the 9 sacks, 14 tackles for loss. So there's no doubt he's got the speed, the power, the build to develop into an effective pass rusher. And I think it's obvious based on what they've said and where they drafted him that Jason Light and the Bucs believe he's just scratching the surface. What do you think, Thor, about Diaby's skill set? And what does he need to improve on if he's going to develop into that starting caliber edge rusher, which I'm sure the Bucs envision or hope he can achieve?
Yeah, that stuff about their belief in him, like that's correct, right? Like, because you have to do like a little bit of extrapolation of like the leaps that he made recently. Like, is he going to be able to sustain that in the jump to the next level with that athletic profile? But like, you like the frame in conjunction with the super fast quicks, like out the ball and whatnot, and in conjunction with last year, like he was super productive, and like you watch him, and it's like, okay, it seems like the light turned on for that kid. It's a natural sort of mental leap to get to. Well, that developmental arrow is going to continue to tick up. Like all that stuff we've seen with that athletic profile, like that would be my supposition too. And like, I like that they, sort of went that direction, whatnot. But yeah, there is the slight risk there is just like, it took until later on to get there. And then like, you love the quickness and the athleticism with stuff like that. The play strength, can we keep working on his body, stuff like that? But like, as far as where they took him and whatnot and what they see him, like total agreement. Not going to argue with, the value that they got in that slot whatsoever.
Cool. SirVocea Dennis, you were 6 picks away in terms of where you valued him and where he was taken. You had him 159. He went 153. This is a guy I didn't know anything about at all going into the draft. Interesting player. I'm curious, does he have the potential to eventually become a starting inside linebacker in the NFL, in your opinion, Thor? Or is he going to be a guy who's going to be, rotational, he's going to be depth, and he's going to be a special team stud?
Yeah, so like with him, I was just wondering about his pre-draft testing, right? Like I wanted to see what that athletic profile is because he's on the smaller side. And like he was productive in college, and I loved his game. Like he zips around. He's like what do you call it? Like he's like a fire extinguisher, right? Like he's putting out the fires. Like he's an efficiency player, like he gets there quick, and then he'll take the ball carrier down, whatnot. But it's like with a guy who has, the frame limitations, whatnot, it's like for that game to play at the next level, like he has to test pretty well, like athletically, or at least get over a certain threshold, whatnot. And he goes out 7.28 RAS is what I'm seeing here now, 4.6, 440. And then the jumps were elite and stuff like that. So it's like you get that and you see them succeeding at Pitt and doing that thing. And it's like, it becomes easier for you to project that specific game that he'll be able to overcome the physical, like just in terms of the size, he'll be able to overcome that because of that athletic profile. That was huge for him to do that. And yeah, like, I mean, like if that game coalesces at the next level, like if the transition is more or less 1-to-1, yeah, it's going to translate because you have the athleticism and you already seen it before. But like that's the only thing with him. Obviously, the bugaboo, it's just the frame and the size. But like again, between the production, between the athletic profile, I'm pretty confident that his game is going to translate to the next level. It's just you can't dream on things you haven't seen with him before, because there is going to be a cap to him because of that frame. But the athletic profile gave him a thumbs up for me.
Some people are making comparisons in terms of like certain attributes and maybe play style to Lavonte David, who is, maybe my favorite Buccaneer of all time. He's that kind of player to me. But I'm not saying he's going to be Lavonte David, but I will say it's a hell of a player to learn from.
It is for sure. Yeah. And that's the exact kind of mentor that, it's like, this is going lower down and a different team, of course, but like 49ers signed one of the top fullbacks. The kid from Oregon State, Calijah. And it was so funny because it's like, Calijah can play special teams, but it's like he at Oregon State, he played quarterback, he played some defense, and then he played fullback as well. And it's like, obviously at the next level, he's going to be like a fullback H-back kind of fella if he is to stick. And it's like, what a perfect mentor. Okay. Kyle Juszczyk, right? Like if he is able to hang on, assume if nothing else, it's the practice squad, but like to teach him the rest of the stuff. And the point that you're making here, it's very well taken, because it's the exact same thing. The kind of things that you need to overcome in the NFL, or the little tricks that you need to have, whatnot, like to overcome the lack of size, lack of length, stuff like that. What better person to teach you? It's not like, Lavonte David has to be his babysitter. It's just like, give him the little stuff, right? Like John, I'll give you a great example from like where I'm from, like John Randall, obviously, we talked about him before as far as the comp with Kancey goes. The Vikings, I forgot how old Randall was at this point, but one year they select Chris Hovan out of Boston College, and he wasn't quite as small as Randall, but it was the same sort of thing where like his game was based on essentially movement and effort. Yeah. And like John Randall really made a point to be like, Chris, let me teach you some of these tricks that I picked up in my frame for getting off of NFL blockers that like shut down your first plane of attack, different stuff. Like that really helped Hovan. Like this stuff's for real. Like it's not like just like, oh, you have like a veteran. It's like, no, he can give you applicable advice to your specific situation in this transition up to the next level that is going to tangibly help your game. So like, I do think that's important. And yeah, I do think Dennis's ceiling for sure is a solid starting NFL linebacker.
Love it. Love that. And yeah, man, it's kind of like having like an in-house like insurance on your investment. Like that player could be more valuable to you or your franchise simply because you have the perfect mentor in place, assuming the character checks out, and that's going to be the type of guy who's going to be willing to do that. Great reference there with Juszczyk. And I think, that could be in place here. And also some familiarity, obviously, taking SirVocea Dennis alongside Calijah Kancey, a couple Pitt Panthers in the building for the Bucs. Payne Durham, I mean, tape doesn't pop out at you a ton. Guy can catch touchdowns. He can make contested catches. He's certainly not very fast. Do you have any like quick thoughts on him?
Yeah, so he, I mentioned the last guy we were talking about, and like, I need to see the athletic profile. I like Durham in college because like he's reliable, right? Like, I mean, they gave him targets consistently and like was reliable, but it's like you weren't getting that explosive element. And so you're thinking about him at the next level, and it's like, don't love him as a blocker. Can't really think about him like, winning at the point of attack as an inline NFL tight end. And so it's like, if his real utility, it's as a receiver, and that is going to function in the NFL out of the slot, it's like, he has to be a good athlete, even though I know he has skill as a receiver, but like, that was my question about him. I was disappointed with the athletic testing. Cause you're hoping that you can, like, 6'5", he had a 6'5" RAS. It wasn't like who is that? Christopher Smith from Georgia, or like the running back last year from UCLA who just fell on his face. Was Demetric Felton, or a year before?
Like Browns took him, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't like an abject disaster, but like for me, if I'm going to give the slot to a tight end and say like we're going to be 12 personnel, but really all that means in this case is like instead of having like a small shifty slot, you're going to put a tight end there that's not good at blocking. He has to justify playing over that other guy with his receiving utility almost exclusively by definition, right? And like there are guys that absolutely rise to that. Dalton Kincaid, great example, right? Like you must play him in the slot. Clearly the Bills know that. They drafted, I saw some people doing the takes of like, why would you take Dalton Kincaid when you already have a tight end one in Dawson Knox and you have other needs? And it's like, okay, guys, like just forget about the position designation on the paper. It is totally irrelevant here. They're not going to affect each other's playing time. Dawson Knox is still going to be your inline guy. Dalton Kincaid, the guys he's kicking out, it's not the McKenzie the kid from Boise State from last year, Shakir. Like,
Shakir.
It's like that's the guy who needs to be upset about this. He ain't displacing Dawson Knox. He doesn't do Dawson Knox things. No. What he's going to be is your wide receiver 2 next year. Well, so Durham, it's the same. Like I think that's what he has to do. And I like the receiving skill of him. Like, and I do think that will translate as far as his athletic profile takes him. I wanted him to test better athletically, so like I could sort of clearly project that. Where he is, it's this weird sort of middle ground. I comped him to Gavin Escobar, who is another like super prolific collegiate tight end who but he wasn't like a crazy elite athlete. And at the NFL level, it just fell down a little bit and you weren't able to do the same sort of things because now you're facing the better athletes and the freaks out there in the nickel role and the defense. Durham has the skill to succeed there in the NFL. It's just, can he get by with the athleticism that he has? It's going to be more or less middling for an NFL average tight end.
Fair. Okay, we've only got a couple minutes left. I'm going to skip over Trey Palmer, even though I wanted your thoughts on him, but that's okay.
No. I would love to. In fact, I would prefer to get my thoughts on Trey Palmer just really quick.
I love it.
I want to tell Tampa Bay exactly what you're getting.
Hell yes.
Exactly what you're getting. My comp for Trey Palmer, I felt like it was one of my proudest moments of any of the comps I gave out, the 800. Trey Palmer is Jalen Reagor. And let me tell you, someone who saw plenty of Reagor, I guess. I always pronounce it Reagor when he was at TCU. It's hard to break. But I saw plenty of that dude at TCU. I understood why Philly was taking him. And then last year I got to see even more of his NFL work after he got traded to the Vikings. Trey Palmer is the same sort of freak athlete in a very similar package who has the exact same Achilles heel. He lacks ball skills. Yeah. And you see it both with him as a receiver and the I almost had to turn away when I rewatched his special teams work because it was like looking in a mirror with the punt returns I seen from Reagor last year, where it's like, it's like, is he actually judging where the ball is coming down? And then all of a sudden, like it's way too far into his frame. Now he makes a sudden movement. He's like, oh, I fucked up. Like, and then all of a sudden, like he's sort of like fighting the ball into his frame. And like, there was a couple times last year where like just bounced off his chest plate. Now it's like out in the field of play. And it's like, oh, can he, go and recover it before the guys get down there, whatnot. You see that stuff from Palmer's film. It's the exact same thing. Can they fix that thing? And then he's a freak athlete. He's a fabulous athlete, both by the tracking, also by the combo, everything he did in pre-testing. He's got to fix the ball skills thing. If he does, this is a crazy steal. If he never does, you're going to get Jalen Reagor's career.
Worth that gamble, though, for sure. I mean, he's Dane Brugler's 13th ranked wide receiver, which is crazy to me when I saw that.
You can't teach athleticism. He's like, 99.999 percentile athlete for the human race, the human species, right? Sure. Like it's like, you just can't teach it. But what we don't know, some guys, you can improve their ball skills at the next level. And like, maybe he was, before LSU stuck behind Butte, some of these different guys, whatnot, wasn't the greatest situation. It's the reason that he went to Nebraska, but then he was getting pounded with way more targets, and he had a great year there in a very bad situation. But like, you've seen that lack of ball skills the same way you're seeing clearly that he is a freak athlete in that physical package, whatnot. But like, you bring that kid in, and it's like, Trey, I know everybody else is working on a million different things. You and us, we're only going to be working on one. Your positioning when the ball's coming, your hands once it gets there. You do not look comfortable with that. We need to improve that. If we do, you might even be an NFL star. But like, we just have to start somewhere.
I appreciate you squeezing that little analysis in for us, Thor. It's valuable because I got 2 more items on the agenda for you.
Yeah.
And dude, like I just mentioned, Dane Brugler, he's a guy who goes deep on prospects as well. But there's no one whose undrafted free agent's opinion I value more. So I'm always checking yours out right away, waiting for those articles to drop. And I know the Seahawks were number 1. That they did a hell of a job. But seeing the Bucs at number 2, and I suspected they might be up there based on some of your initial reads on some of their players. The 2 guys I want to talk about, or sorry, 3 guys really, who are all inside your top 200 prospects that the Buccaneers managed to sign after going undrafted. Kayvon Merriweather, shout out to the hat you're rocking right now. Safety for Iowa.
And Tristan Wirfs, don't forget.
Yeah, true. Hell yeah. Raheem Jarrett, receiver out of Maryland. He was your 170th prospect. And then Sean Tucker, 194, Syracuse running back. I mean, all of those players fit a need, especially the safety and the running back. And it sounds like they all got a legit chance to stick. What do you like about these guys, Thor? Is it the depth of the Bucs undrafted free agent signings that you like, or is it kind of these 3 guys being there all on the same team is just a real nice coup for Jason Light and co?
Yeah, so like with the UDFA thing, like I have a whole, it's not just me. Well, it's literally not me eyeballing the class. Like it's based on these formulas that I have of like, where they were ranked pre-draft and different stuff like that. And then you weight it way more heavily towards the top because there's a finite amount of roster spots that you get, especially when you have to cut down to the 53. So you weigh way more heavily the top of that class. This is why the Bucs got, my number 2 ranking in the UDF, like just behind the Seahawks, number 2 UDFA class in the NFL this year. I love what they did at the top. There was decent depth, like 2, 4, 6, 8. They had 9 different guys that were in my top 390 as well. But like the 3 guys you mentioned, like that gets heavyweight. Merriweather is a really good player who fell into a trap that numerous other Iowa back 7 defenders have fallen into with NFL evaluations these last many years, ever since like they had Kirk Ferentz and Phil Parker, which is just like they're all in zone coverage. And so it's like you'll always notice, like it's funny, like with the draft media, they always undersell the athleticism of those back 7 defenders with Iowa because they never see them running in a straight line with a dude trailing a dude down the field. Like it's like I was like, until I was blue in the face this spring, I was like, everyone, Jack Campbell is awesome in coverage. It's just like, and he's also super athletic. It's just, you haven't seen him like run the 40 yards in a row, but like, just watch him within the like the responsibilities he gets. Like, it's very clear, but like it, with a guy like Merriweather, where he's not a star, it becomes an even bigger sort of thing he has to jump over. Like, there's already sort of suspicion about him, right?
Yeah.
Like, cause it's like, oh, all you had to do was just stay in this one spot, whatnot. And you had all these good players around you, et cetera. But like super duper reliable. He's in the, good NFL frame, 6 foot, 205. And then the athleticism was there too. Almost 79th percentile, whatever. You just put the athleticism with what you've seen on the field. Like to me, that was absolutely draftable. You have to put the caveat that you put on him with all the other guys, which is, I don't know how he would do if, you ask him like, oh, you have to go and play in the nickel. You have to trail this dude all the way across. I don't know. Never seen it before. But like, as far as manning his assignments in zone coverage and as far as the rest of his game, it's like, this is clearly draftable. So like getting him where I'm like for free, right? Like, I mean, with just the signing bonus, very good signing with him. Moving to the other guys like Jarrett. I mean, what were the odds that you could have gotten like, when he comes out of high school and earlier in his college career that he was going to go undrafted? You would have gotten stupid plus odds on that. Like, I mean, like this kid was an extremely promising prospect. Obviously, he was 5-star coming out of high school, and he showed flashes throughout at Maryland. But, with him, you're looking at, he's under 6 foot. He's just a hair over 190. Does have the athleticism, absolutely, which is the reason that for the recruiting pedigree, everything like that. He has to correct his own problems with drops. I don't think his, like the things with with Palmer, I feel like with him, it's more like ball skills. Because with Palmer, it seems more like he just doesn't know how to do it. Like, right. Like, in terms of how do you do it when the ball's coming down on the punt? Like, Trey, what should you be focusing on in this moment, and how can you best position yourself for that? Like stuff like that, or like at the, how can you position yourself best as a receiver, like whatever, and then, get the hands up, and how can we improve that? Like with Jarrett, my question, it's more literally the hands. And so like, that's something that he has to clean up. He needs to polish the routes and stuff as well. Like he's been leaning on the athleticism for a while now, which I can't begrudge him for, because like, if you're an amateur pitcher that can throw 102 miles per hour, you typically only throw fastballs. But like now it's like, Raheem, that ain't going to work at the next level. Like we have to polish those routes as well. But like, if you do those two things, you got something here. Like all the other stuff plays. And then the last one, Sean Tucker, 1,000,000,000% would have been drafted if it wasn't for the medical things. And like, that was something he dealt with in college. And then, you had the really unfortunate thing where he gets flagged during the, when he's at the combine, and they're, they does the medical evaluation. Then they're like, Sean, we regret to inform you, like, you can't work out here. Sure. Cause the cardiac issues or whatever. Yeah. Like, and he dealt with other nagging injuries besides that, like sort of throughout his college career. So the thing with him, it's can you keep him on the field? And like, is it safe for him to be on the field? Like, I don't know anything else about the cardiac stuff. Like, and I didn't stay in a Holiday Inn Express last night, so I can't even, venture a guess as far as like how that will progress going forward. Will that compromise his ability, whatnot? But like, if he can be on the field, he absolutely should have been drafted in the middle rounds at least. And like, if there was zero medical stuff whatsoever, I even think he would have had a shot for the back of day two. Like one of, we were talking about this on Twitter, but like certainly one of the most explosive backs in this class, and the home run hitting speed, but also like the ability to get yourself out in space. He has all that stuff. I prefer him with that stuff. For instance, like Chase Brown is another kind of guy like this. Abanaconda is as well. They're slightly different, but like, I wouldn't, again, you take out the medical stuff, like Abanaconda against Tucker, that's pretty dang close, because they're pretty analogous. They play in the same conference. It's the same sort of utility when they're on. Can you keep Sean Tucker on the field? If you can, he is going to hit home runs for you.
Well, he doesn't he doesn't need to be your bell cow, obviously, right? So if he makes a team, and I feel like he will, I mean, he's got to outplay like Keyshawn Vaughn, like to kind of get, like, and he's a different type of runner than your boy Rashad White, our boy now.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, thank you for hitting on those UDFAs, man. That's huge, because I think getting an expert's opinion on them from an unbiased perspective such as yourself is so valuable. Last thing, I'm going to steal just like, we'll see, a rapid fire. I got like 10 rapid fire questions for you, man.
Let's do it.
All right. So speaking of Rashad White, is he an RB1 or a complimentary back?
I would like him to be a complimentary back, because I think his skill set so well. You can put him with someone else where it just coalesces really well. That's how I prefer him. But like, I mean, I think he can handle the usage, like if that's what they're going to do with him. But I would love for him to be a complimentary back with sort of like your meat and potatoes grinder fella.
Okay. Are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the second worst team in the NFL, like Peter King says?
Oh, no, that's mean of Peter. Like, I mean, did the Cardinals and the Texans still exist?
Dude, well, he had, it's crazy. I think he had the Cardinals below them, but no one else. And I'm like, there's a lot of squads who don't have a shit ton of proven guys. All right, appreciate that. Carlton Davis or Jamel Dean?
For me, I might just have a soft spot for Jamel Dean, but like, I remember like him coming out and whatnot, and it was like, man, is he even going to be able to play football, and will he get the shot and stuff? And he did. And like, you love the kids where it's just like, it just blows up then, where they always had, the ability, they always had the athleticism, and it's like, they, like your body is betraying you, and then you just make good on that. So like, maybe I'm biased, but like, I love that kid.
I got a soft spot for him too, man. They're both super comparable too in terms of their performance. Tristan Wirfs, any concerns moving from right to left tackle? Because it looks like that's what's going to happen.
Not for me. Going back to that year, he was my tackle one.
Yeah, mine too, actually.
Yeah, and I had Winfield safety one in that class. Maybe it's just me and the Buccaneers were like reading off the same script or whatever, but like they tend to draft, a lot of the decisions are similar to what I would make. And like I thought Wirfs got super undersold that process, because like people would be like, oh, move him inside to guard. And it's like, first of all, did you watch his tape? But second of all, did you just watch the effing show he just put on in Indianapolis? You're going to try to claim that kid like doesn't have the athleticism for it, or like, so no, like I'm not putting anything past Tristan Wirfs. Like, you got the freak athleticism, of course, and you love the play style. He's super reliable with that. He's going to be fine.
Love it. Is Mike Evans a Hall of Famer?
Oh man. Oh, that's a tough one.
Only player in NFL history with 9 consecutive 1,000-yard receiving seasons.
So I know, like, by the numbers, he probably right on the line. I'm going to maybe at this point, without any of the other work that we're going to see in the future, he'd be about you'd have to go with your own personal tiebreaker on this. My tiebreaker, where it pushes him into the Hall of Fame, is Mike Evans made Johnny Manziel a first-round pick. And the amount of ability that it would have taken to do that is such that, with all else equal, with his NFL work being right on that line, for me, that is a tiebreaker. Congratulations, Mike Evans. Here's your gold jacket. You are enshrined in Canton now.
Love it. Give him the hammer.
Exactly.
Yeah. Derek Brooks or Warren Sapp?
For me, Warren Sapp. I just so love this game. And I mentioned before that I love Johnny Randall. And I know they're not the exact same, but like, those guys that are like, this is the reason that I can't wait to watch Kancey in the NFL too. Like the guys with the stupid movement and stuff like that. And Sapp obviously had the strength as well. But like, I just love the way he played, and I love his personality too. So I'd have to go with Sapp.
Okay. Who is going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year?
Oh, it's a tough one because they always skew it towards the quarterbacks.
It's true.
I'm going to say, oh, it's a tough one. You know what? I'm going to say Anthony Richardson.
Oh, I love that. Okay, Defensive Rookie of the Year. I got to ask you that one too. I'm sorry.
I'm going to say, man, wait, I want to say Devin Witherspoon so bad, but it all comes down to counting stats.
Right.
Politics. I'm gonna say Witherspoon. I'm just gonna go on a limb with it. Like Will Anderson's obviously the safe bet because that he's gonna play all the snaps and he's gonna have the sack and TFL numbers. But to me, Witherspoon is different than guys we've seen in recent years. Like, I don't know if he gets enough interceptions to justify that, but I'm gonna say Witherspoon.
Okay, last one, Thor. If you could take one Tampa Bay Buccaneer and add him to the Vikings roster for this season and this season alone, who would it be?
Okay, well, I'm biased, but I'm stealing Tristan Wirfs.
Yeah,
and I know the Vikings don't need a tackle maybe as much as some other. I don't care. Like I'm just taking my dude. Like and yeah, I mean obviously my bias is well known here, but that's the guy that I would want to steal off of that team, and the Vikings could use a guard for sure. We ain't kicking Wirfs in there. We'll kick Brian O'Neill in there. We'll let Wirfs take over right tackle, and then just have the nastiest offensive line.
I think anyone who said anything other than Tristan Wirfs would have just been mistaken. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Thor Nystrom at ThorKU on Twitter. You can catch all of his phenomenal work over at fantasypros.com. Super impressive stuff, Thor. While I'm at it, I'll plug my own stuff. Make sure you're checking out BucsGameDay.com, Sports Illustrated's only website dedicated specifically to covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. My Twitter handle's on the screen. Thor, God bless you, man. Can't thank you enough for having you on. Bucs fans are better off because of it. And I look forward to hopefully making this an annual tradition and getting you on again next year, man.
Let's do it. Yeah, always good talking to you, dude. And we'll redo it next year.
There it is. All right. Take care, folks.